G'day guys, back with the Outer Circle. Just a quick one today. Last night I put out a video talking about the Imperial Armour problem that Forge World currently has and how they haven't really been putting out any real Imperial Armour campaign books in such a long time. Now we know about the gone but not forgotten Fires of Syraxis that's happened and then not happened and then was happening again, now is clearly in purgatory. Well, what I propose is my own Imperial Armour book, which, well, let's face it, I'm not going to write it, especially not for 9th edition rules. But I'm happy to come with the concept for it and maybe down the line make up some artwork. And today, I've made up just a cover of it to show you, just to gauge interest, because I think I've got my finger on the pulse of the community, and what I think the community would like is something like this. I know, what a fantastic Photoshop job, right? It was definitely not 5 minutes in Windows Paint. Yes, first edition, volume whatever, because we don't know what volume it would be. The Octarius War. Now, what is the Octarius War? Well, essentially, an Imperial Inquisitor by the name of Cryptman, he decided to divert the Tyranids away from Imperial space by causing an exterminatus event on several planets. What this meant was the Tyranids saw no biomass in that direction, so they went off where there was biomass, and this sent them careening straight into an Orc empire. What it meant, therefore, was that the Orcs, an unstoppable, pretty much impossible to eradicate killing force, as the battles for Armageddon have shown us, the War for Armageddon, they just keep coming back because they're spore people, and of course the Tyranids, which are also practically unkillable as long as there's some biomass for them. Well, these two forces clashed, and that is the Octarius War. And to me, this is the sort of campaign book 40k desperately needs. Now, it could be because I'm a fan of both the Orcs and the Tyranids, although I want to point out, never collected an army of either. I started a Tyranid army but never got around to finishing it. It would be really good to see something that's Xenos based, not Imperial centric, and that's not to say that you couldn't have the Imperium involved. After all, Cryptman, great opportunity for a model. You could have the Death Watch involved, perhaps something involving kill teams, infiltrating onto the planet and performing assassinations whenever they see one side getting the leg up on the other, something like that in order to maintain the balance so that the Orcs and the Tyranids are both contained, pulling more and more of their own resources into this war so they can't threaten the Imperium. You could definitely take that approach. You could also have actual fleshing out of the Orc factions involved. Of course, Gazkul comes along at the end of it, and you could introduce him into the book. But of course, you have the regular Orcs themselves, and that gives you scope to create new special characters for both them and the Tyranids. How would the Tyranids react to the threat of the Orcs? Well, the Orcs aren't like the Imperium or the Tau or other races. They're a brutal, blunt force who has their own psychic field they project that makes their technology work. How would this be affected when in the presence of the hive mind and the shadow of the warp? How would the Tyranids create different biomorphs to combat the Orcs? What crazy contraptions would the Orcs come up with to combat the Tyranids? This to me is endless potential and I want to explore it more. Perhaps something along the lines of creating a set of artwork, maybe some campaigns, maybe even writing my own fluff for it. Now, I think this is something the community would like, especially because it's not Marine-centric and it's not Chaos-centric, it's not Necron-centric. It's two of the most forgotten races, despite the fact that they're the punching bags of the Imperium constantly, two of the most forgotten races being given 5 minutes of limelight. Because what Forge World did so well with Imperial Armour, and have ceased to do since, is the narrow slice. Now, for those who aren't aware what that means, they would take a event that is mentioned, just a passing reference in the books, and they would cut out a chunk of that event and extrapolate upon that. So the Bad Ab Wars is a great example. Everyone knows that the Astral Corps turned rogue and that Loyalist chapters got dragged into the conflict, and eventually the Astral Corps lost the conflict and became the Red Corsairs. Well, Forge World took that and explained how it got to the situation where they seceded from the Imperium, how they were doing so well and actually winning the war at one point, and then eventually more and more chapters got sucked into the conflict and they lost, and it fleshed out those different chapters in that different time period of the Imperium. Well, here is the chance to do that for 2 different races. It doesn't mean that they need to create a whole bunch of new releases either. 2 or 3 new releases for each faction from Forge World could be done, and it would probably keep a lot of people happy. And really all you're doing is just painting up different colours of Hive Fleet, different colours of Orcs, because, okay, it's a splinter of, I think it's Hive Fleet Leviathan that's involved. They could change colour. Perhaps they're not going to be the purple and white scheme. The Orcs themselves. Who knows how many different Orc forces are going to be drawn in from different Orc empires. The scope to me is vast here, and this is the sort of book I want to see, and the sort of thing that would make me more involved in 40k. But right now we're not really seeing this, and it's kind of disappointing. So what do you think? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think I should create some artwork and perhaps some fluff, write a campaign for it perhaps? Let me know. I'm not going to write 9th edition rules. I'm the worst person for that, honestly, because I just am not keeping up with the meta. Nor do I really like 8th and 9th as editions. I think 9th is a much better edition than 8th, for the record. But I also prefer the old school tactics of 40k, not area effect bubbles. But that's my own personal bias, and I know to avoid it because it's my problem. Instead, I think I could do a pretty good job of writing a background, talking about the campaign, what each side in it does, and how the different sides think. Because again, on one hand, you've got the Orcs trying to use their rudimentary cunning versus the hive mind itself, and this would be done from an Imperial perspective, talking about the conflict, which would be great to see, trying to rationalise the decisions these 2 forces make. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Mac with the Outer Circle, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.